ours took that one from Mexico, threw it in the trash. One of us don't even notice when the radio plays that song. One of us breaks down and has to pull over whenever it comes on. Now there ain't no in between when it comes to her and me. One of us moved on, one of us got stuck, one of us is drinking just for fun, one of us is drinking to get drunk, one of us sleeps good, one of us hates to face the night. Just depends if you're talking about her world or mine. There's a number on the phone that one of us erased. There's a late night, can we try again call one of us wants to make. Cause one of us can't even think about being in another's arms. And there's a car in the drive that stayed all night where one of us used to park. One of us moved on, one of us got stuck, one of us is drinking just for fun, one of us is drinking to get drunk, one of us sleeps good, one of us hates to face the night. Just depends if you're talking about her world or mine. For a while we had forever in our hands. That's why one of us can't understand how one of us moved on, one of us got stuck, one of us is drinking just for fun, one of us is drinking to get drunk, one of us sleeps good, one of us hates to face the night. Just depends if you're talking about her world or mine. Yeah, that's the difference between her world or mine.
I just love that song. That song is by Michael Ray and it's called Her World or Mine. I said I was going to play any more music in the last video because I said they ended up getting clipped out or copyrighted or whatever. And I ran long in the last classroom, in our Bookless classroom, I ran long. And so I just wanted an extra break and I thought I would play that song for you. It was running through my head, and since it was running through my head, I played it. If a song is running through my head that much, I have a need to play it. So I played it. But that song is really all about perspective, isn't it? It just depends on the difference between her world and mine, right? One of us moved on. One of us got stuck. One of us is drinking just for fun. The other one is drinking to get drunk. Got to start recording there. So those lyrics I'm talking about for the recording there is, they were from Michael Ray, Her World or Mine. Just, oh my goodness, about perspective. And I first heard that song, about a year after my husband passed away. And that was a hard... I might take a break. Even now, I didn't play that to do this. Even now, it's still hard to hear. So why did I play that then? If I needed a break, it was running through my head. And it was just our 2-year anniversary of his passing was the 22nd. And then my son's birthday was the 23rd. So those kinds of things, you know, we all have these things that we just have to figure out how to get through. And there are constant reminders of them, like that song, right? It isn't interesting. So he was the one who could have written that song, right? One of us moved on, one of us got stuck, one of us is drinking just for fun, the other one is drinking to get drunk. He was the one who was drinking to get drunk. I know this is a critical thinking classroom, and this is about relationships. So you guys are older in some ways, right? You're a lot older in some ways with, you know, just hard times. You're a lot older in some ways, but you're still young in other ways. I understand. Age-wise and experience-wise, you're still young. But you can certainly understand that song. And again, I was like, it was running through my head and I needed a break. And so I thought I would play it since it was running through my head. And I was like, well, it makes me very sad. Should I play it? And I was like, I'm okay. And then I was like, well, it makes me very sad. And it makes me very sad because nobody wants to be stuck. Nobody wants to be stuck. And actually, part of what I do is therapy. Especially therapy training, more therapy training than actual therapy. Although you have to go through the therapy and you have to, you know, be able to train people or, you know, do it yourself. You have to have it done on yourself. But going through, you know, this kind of sort of therapy training, I understand, kind of lost that point right there. I understand that individuals have different perspectives on things that we go through at different critical periods in our life. At one time was the perspective that he was the one, you know, that was you know, and I don't, you know, drink to get drunk. But I did for a while there. There was after our divorce and things when things weren't, you know, working out. And so what does this have to, like, am I like, oh, and then another thing, boo-hoo, and while I reminisce, forget about the classroom, where's my glass of wine? No. No, that's not what I'm here for. This really is on topic here, and it really is understanding that we all have things that are deep, deep, deep emotional scars and all kinds of things that we really have to work out and figure out different ways to work them out. But there are healthy ways to work them out, as I've talked about. And Now, our classroom, critical thinking classroom, our spiritual classroom, and philosophical classroom really have a lot of overlap in themes, but not a lot of overlap in topics that I talk about. But so I'm saying it's always valuable to take a look at those other classes to see, because we've talked about some of this stuff in both of those other classrooms, and even in the Bookless classroom as well. We talk about some of the stuff that I'm bringing up about groupthink. We talked about that just in the last classroom, in our Bookless classroom. So there's a lot of overlap here. And if you want to get a deeper dive into the topics that we're talking about, because that's, where you're at mentally, doesn't matter how old you are, where you're at mentally, check out Spiritual Classroom and check out the Philosophical Classroom, because I go into deeper dives in different areas if you're like, oh, I wish you would talk more about this or that. But right now, this is rolling into I like this top. This is a cute Disney top, and then I was going to go like this and whatever. It doesn't even matter. Sorry about that. That was leftover tears in my nose. How about that for a song? Those are leftover tears in my nose. Oh. Anyway, and so the perspective from that song was, he could have sung that song in 2013, and I could have sung that song as well in 2013, and even more recently, since he's passed. In my mind, I've been left with the earthly struggles that I have, right? And he doesn't have those. And he doesn't have those. I had to deal with the funeral and the fallout from all the kids and fiancés and all that stuff. I had to deal with that, right? So to me, and I'm sure that many in this classroom can understand this, right? To me, in a way, he got the easy way out. I had and still am dealing with fallout even right now to this day, right? Still 2 years later, as would be the case, right? It just doesn't, work out in our nice little 3-month package that we would like it to work out in, right? I'll be right back up there. It's not really be right back. So what we're developing, there are two things. If you looked on the lesson, it says learned helplessness. This is what we're going to go into. I'd like to give you a little bit of a hook for what we're rolling into. And I don't want to repeat myself, even though most of what we're going to be talking about really is true grit. And it's so funny to me how I get this song playing in my head and decide to play it. And these all fold into our spiritual classroom. The fact that I played that and had no intention or plan to play that, and now I am, and it has everything to do with true grit, right? So do you have the ability to and to move on, to plan ahead, to set goals, to pull yourself out of depression, to figure out how to deal and cope with your anxiety? Do you have that ability? And, I'm just thinking about a book that I'm rereading, which is Hyperbole and Other Something or Other. I think Other Hype or something like that. And I might even know the author, because if this person isn't the author, well, this person really could have written this book and done the illustrations as well. And so I'm thinking about the true grit that author has. I'm by Allie Bash, I think was the last name. I think it was the last name, Allie Bash. And I'm thinking about that as I'm talking to you, and I'm, a normal person would let those thoughts go here and just fly right back out. And I stop on them for you. But I stop on them for you, spiritual classroom stuff. I stop on them for you because I believe that listening to those little intuitions that I have, that song playing in my head, that book I'm thinking about while I'm talking about something else, somebody's trying to control those thoughts that go off in this direction or that direction, saying those are bad things, that you have ADHD, and stop and just get on one thought. That really is robotic thinking. That's not human thinking. And that comes from our medical industry, which I'm going to start just destroying. I realize we need, our surgeries and things, but we only are desperate to need those things because that's the world that the medical industry has created. And certainly we are beyond our barbaric means of cutting open a chest and splitting it open for heart surgery. I know technologically, if we can put a phone, we can do something better than that. But the medical industry is dictating the narrative for our health, as they have been for a long time. And this is the reason why our longevity, how long we live, right, and what we understand about the body and medicine and those kinds of things is just so full of BS. It's not even funny. And it's not funny because you're talking about human lives and you're talking about people who clearly do not care at all about human lives. And so this is always, all of my classes are a course in you learning to take control. And these are the very lessons that we have been taught, that I've been taught to teach you and teach all of my students about in order to learn how to take control. So the next lessons that we really learn, the bigger picture that we're really learning about, remember, we're learning about ourselves, right? We are learning about how to assess information in ways that we understand better, we apply those things better, we evaluate, right? I'm missing one of those in there that's key, even though we remember the other one that's key, that I think begins with an A. Associate. We make associations. I'm pretty sure, I can't see. Pretty sure that one's up there, right? So we are learning all of this to learn about what? To learn about ourselves better, right? So we're learning about ourselves better. And as we move into this knowledge that we have about ourselves, this main topic, we were talking about the self, right? We were talking about what were our earlier topics? Who moved my cheese? Right? So we were talking about how well we look at the world. What is our perspective on the world when we take a look at challenges in order to be able to develop this better sense that we have of ourselves, right? So that's the journey in the critical thinking classroom that we're on. A journey where we find out more about who we are. So about the self and investigating it on these levels that we had there. And what did we talk about then? We talked about, right? So happiness and the self, what makes us happy, right? We talked about that. We talked about then about this idea of self-esteem, right? So developing the self, being happy. What does that relate to regarding self-esteem, right? Because we really want more than self-esteem. We want self-worth. We really want more than happiness. We want joy, right? So we're learning about the self and the things that we need. And the things that we need are up there, higher order needs. What I say that we are being conditioned by communism, actually, which is a fascist government as well, right? Fascism leads to communism, is a focus on those bottom two levels, right? If we focus on those bottom two levels and we have our basic needs met, we don't care about things like loving one another. We don't care about things like developing ourselves. But what I've said is that no matter what you do to get human beings to focus on those bottom levels, you believe that some people are not human. You believe they're animals, and that's the mistake that you make. You underestimate some races and classes of human beings. I'm talking specifically about communism and fascists. You underestimate individuals that are human beings. You underestimate their will and ability to move up that ladder and desire to, because it's written in our hearts and souls, spiritual classroom, eudaimonic, real, true happiness. So as much as communists and fascists want to keep a certain um, race of human beings, certain races of human beings on those bottom rungs because they believe that they are animals and treat them like animals, they are human beings and they will always rise to the desire of those higher levels, especially since in the Great Experiment here in the United States, that's what we were taught to achieve, right? That is the great hope, isn't it, right? Sometimes it was called the Great White Hope, wasn't it? Isn't that interesting, right? It is our great hope for all people here. It is not simply the Great White Hope. That's an expression. That's an expression. And you have to wonder where our expressions come from because there are roots in them. Sometimes they don't sound right, whatever, like they make sense. Figure out the roots of our expression as part of our understanding our language and understanding our words. Very, very valuable. Okay. So we moved into the idea of that there are higher order needs and that we need to focus on our higher order needs. In order for us to do so, we have to feel like it's worth the effort, like there's a payoff. Here in the United States, we have come to believe that there's a payoff. That is democracy. Democracy is if I work hard, there's a payoff for my dreams. Communism and fascism says you can work as hard as you want. You will always stay right here. That's communism. That's fascism. You will always stay right here in this level. This is why socialism said that the proletariat, the working class intellectuals, working class smart people, they will rise to that higher level. That's what Marxism said. So people who are like against socialism, hey, no, what that is the hard worker who is rising to the idea that I was told my hard work will pay off. And even if you didn't tell me that, because I live here in the United States, which I heard about the United States, it will rise up in me anyway. And I'll move from all over places all over the world to come to the place that told me I can rise up. Are we going to turn America into a fascist communist country that teaches us that some people cannot rise up and they belong there on the bottom rung? And then who's going to tell who is on the bottom rung? I am reading Senate hearings from what I believe are outcomes of this intergroup conflict by Muzaffar Sharif, O.J. Simpson. I'm sorry, not Simpson. O.J. Harvey. B.J. White. Find these people. Find these people, Sharif. Find these people, Carolyn. Find these people. Find them. I want to interview them. I don't give a shit about you, Carolyn. Oh, sorry, wrong classroom. Oh, or Muzaffar. Oh, I think is dead, but Carolyn isn't. I don't know. You have offspring, Muzaffar. We're finding them. Okay, anywho, let's get on to, before we run out of time, let's get done with our true grit. So, Michael Ray, who sung Her World or Mine. I know that Michael Ray is not in that place. He's a gorgeous man. Look him up. He's not in that place. But any one of us, it doesn't matter, can be in that place where we think that this person is, out drinking just for fun while I'm drinking to get drunk, right? Or whatever it is that you do to bury your head in the pillow, which may just be exactly that. Well, you're out with the night on the town. I've got my face buried in a pillow, eating ice cream every time I lift my head up, right? Maybe that's you. What am I here for? I'm here to teach you how to rise up on that level. Rise up. higher on that level is what I'm here, because you have the spirit. You actually do. You were made with the spirit. We knew that this was out in the 1930s. Maslow's hierarchy of needs was out in the 1930s. So we've known this for almost 100 years, right? Scientifically, psychologically speaking, right? We've known this. Theoretically speaking, 450 BC, go talk to Aristotle. He was saying the same thing. Where did we get the word eudaimonic from? Aristotle, 450 BC, around there, right? Circa. That's what circa means. Circa means around. So when you see circa 1950, around 1950 is what that means. Circa, right? Circa and a date is what you see. C-I-R-C-A, circa. That means around. We're not quite sure what the date is. Most of the time we should know the date, right? I could find the date, but I'm saying circa, around. I don't know the actual date. It can be found. When you see it in writing, it means we don't know what it is. It is around there, right? We might not know when somebody was born. We might not have the records of when somebody was born. Circa 1451, right? Something like that. Okay. We get all kinds of lessons here, all kinds of little interesting tidbits as we learn. Let's get to the true grit, because even though, again, so spiritual stuff, I didn't know I was going to play that song, and I knew if I played it, I was thinking, I'm okay, I'm not going to get weepy or teary or eyed or anything, and then, oh my gosh, just about took me out over there hearing that song. But again, that's okay. That's okay. Our head can't be in a pink cloud all the time. Sometimes we need real doses, because that's what makes us people. That's what makes us human beings. And these comments, I know. I get in, yeah, no, I don't, yeah. Dr. Feravich doesn't do illegal drugs. I'm just saying. I know, I've seen comments out there and stuff like that. I touch my face. I just touch my face and I just keep going with it. And a lot of people don't, who are in, TV and things like that. But if something itches, my head itches, I itch it, right? That's what happens. That's what I do. So I'm just laughing about that, because I know that I get, this nose issue, which I think that some people are assuming is something else. Whatever, it's not. This energy comes from Holy Spirit. That's really where it comes from. I deal with my stress in different ways, right? I have different coping mechanisms for my stress, but the passion that you see is Holy Spirit passion. That's it. That's Holy Spirit passion is what you see. Okay. I'm just a normal human being doing normal things. That's it. Mostly normal. Some of it's kind of crazy. Some of it actually is. I mean, I heard somebody say, why would you do this? Why, you're sitting over there for an audience of, maybe 30 people sometimes. Why would you do this? Because this is what I was made to do. And I know that some people are, thinking it's kind of funny or joking about it or whatever. And I know that other people are really getting something out of it. And I think that the more and more that we talk about these things, I've always wanted in my life to always, my biggest dream was to bring the knowledge that I know scientifically to the average person. It's what I knew when I first started getting into psychology, that's what I was going to do. I wasn't going to write those papers that nobody understood, right? And that were, 50 words long for one sentence. I wasn't going to be that person. I could be that person, but I wasn't going to be that person. Why? Because we need to value and understand our scientific findings. We need to value them and understand our scientific findings. And right now, we have neither. Right now, in this science is everything, we have no understanding of what that science is really about, and no real passion or fervor to find out more about it, to really investigate it, to understand it, to investigate it, to report it in truthful ways. We have diminished our desire to do that, to even care about science, because it just so often lies to us, and it's written in ways that we can't understand. Even if they were telling us the truth, how would we know? Go to my Bookless classroom. I spent almost the entire time talking about this this stupid book by Christopher Columbus that just pisses me off. And it does because, why? Because it's so filled. It has really it hasn't demolished, but it really has put such a black stain on all of these books I'm reading for the Bookless Classroom, which I find to be so wonderful, these history books. And my class has gotten so much out of them. And then I get, right there are the stack of books that I have that I'm choosing from and that I bought for my Bookless Classroom. And then I come and I have to take a look at this stupid Christopher Columbus book that who even knows when it's got an author here and a different author on the inside. Who even knows what this book is about? But what I noticed in this book is I've noticed that they are speaking gibberish. And so I tried to make it clear, and I want to make it clear here as well, that the things I'm saying should make sense to you. The thing anybody is saying should make sense to you. And if it doesn't make sense to you, it may be because you don't know, right? But you know what you know. Sometimes it simply is the fact that somebody is feeding you gibberish. And I pointed out, and it bears repeating in this classroom because we're critical thinkers. I pointed out this picture here. This is in a book that has an author's name here and a different author on the inside. So all kinds of discrepancies I'm finding out right away. All right. And this, I want you to hear what I'm saying. I'm giving you an example of something that you might not understand, but you won't understand it. I'm giving you an example of something that you won't understand, but you won't understand it because it's gibberish. That's why. You won't, not because you're not smart enough to understand. You won't understand this because it's gibberish, all right? In a printed book that I should expect to be filled with honesty. This is the difference between a democratic America and a communist or fascist America. Fascists can say anything that they want. It doesn't have to be true. We've seen an example of that under our last president. So here now I can pick up a printed book and it could be gibberish. Let me give you an example. And you might think it's you. You likely would think it's you not understanding. As this old map shows, before 1492, how can we have an old map showing before 1492 when we didn't know that these existed? As this old map shows, really, this old map, I've never even heard of these places. Spice Islands? Spice Islands? We have no Spice Islands. This is somebody who's trying to change history. Zachary Kent is trying to change history. Let's find out who this Zachary Kent is, because I think Zachary Kent is a communist. I've seen other books by R.L. Stine, and now we can't do the communist hunting like we are doing witch hunting, like we did it in the with the witch hunts, or with McCarthy, who did the communist hunts either. Nobody's telling you to do a hunt except for information. Do deep dives on information so you have the information. Nobody has time to do a hunt other than for information. All right? All right? You don't know who the bad guys are. Neither do I. So I'm not hunting for bad guys. I'm hunting for information. All right? That's the hunt. All right? As this old map shows, before 1492, Europeans had no idea that the huge landmass of America lay between Europe and Asia. Where is there a huge landmass in this picture that's laying between two other landmasses, Europe and Asia? This is gibberish. This is gibberish. And so we can be investigators, and it doesn't even have to be that hard for us to see and find gibberish. We are now critical thinkers. We just don't read something and then say it's true. We read it for understanding. This doesn't make any sense. Remember, we read first for understanding, right? Actually, I'm going to go the other way. So here, Bloom's taxonomy. We read first for understanding, and this doesn't make any sense. And we're smart enough to know that. One of the problems is going to be our memory. And this is one of the things I've said. I mean, when you only have the internet to rely on and you don't have books to rely on, or even just facts from your own life. I remember when Ronald Reagan said, tear down that wall. I remember when Germany was divided. Yeah, oh my gosh, I can't even believe that it was Germany. Can you even believe that Germany was divided after World War II or Berlin, North and South Berlin, Germany. And one of those was very similar to Korea, North and South Korea, where you had one of them, which was completely under communist control, that had no information, and they weren't given information, just like North Korea. I'm sorry, who was paying attention to those dictators in the last presidency? Who was paying attention to those dictators? So, and making friends with them and being friendly with them to get what kind of information, right? I mean, those are the things that we really do need to pay attention to. So what I'm saying here is the Italian city of Genoa, where Christopher Columbus was born. I don't know about that, or 1451. I would have to find that out. But oh, here. The Lisbon Harbor as it looked during Columbus's time. Well, it could have looked that way. I said in Bookless classroom it couldn't have looked that way. The American, this is Lisbon. This is Lisbon, Portugal, where Columbus was sailing from. But we do know, we have to look at his voyage, but one of these pictures has a picture of his voyage, which was his first voyage here. His first voyage stopped at the Canary Islands. Do we have a stop at the Canary? We do have a stop at the Canary Islands. I don't know that it was straight across. So these are things that we have to check. And maybe that is accurate. Maybe that is accurate. But there are interesting uses of language here that can make somebody with a different perception think differently about the times. Like, for example, make people think that crossing the Atlantic Ocean would be far too treacherous for somebody to do, right? So you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't build a ship and do that. So watching the language of things, but don't get yourself so wrapped up that you're not looking at facts, right? This is what we want to talk about. And so how are we continuing to pursue and move on in the face of people who are basically serving us up in our democratic United States of America that has really been built on truth and honesty, serving up just a pile of crap. Not everywhere it's been built on truth and honesty. What was our first export? Tobacco. Well, tobacco was filled with nicotine. It was a drug. And that's what we were giving the Europeans and the Indians, who loved it and wanted more and more. So it was a drug. The nicotine was in there for addiction. Okay. So let me get my other, there we go. I just want to see what this looks like. I'm getting on my other screen so I can see it. All right, so let's finish this True Grit slide up, and then we can start going into our learned helplessness. And remember, learned helplessness is about how and where we get control and feel that we have control. True Grit is what these are our outcomes when we have control. This is our behavior. Let's say that. This is our behavior, not our outcomes. We have seen some of the outcomes, right? We've seen those health outcomes when we are looking for building relationships. So sort of the ultimate outcomes we've looked at. health outcomes and relationship outcomes that give us real joy and satisfaction, right? We've looked at those. Now we're stepping back and we're taking a look at the behaviors that lead to those outcomes. So we're going to do a much deeper dive on the behaviors that lead to these outcomes. Here is a summary. We call it grit. Remember what I was talking about when we were talking about in the last couple episodes episodes of this, whatever you want to call it, day 17 and 18. What we were talking about is well, obviously the benefits, but then what we started talking about is the individuals, the stories of the individuals who had different levels of self-esteem and where they were deriving that self-esteem. Deriving here means where were they getting that self-esteem from, right? Some of them had bad experiences in their childhood. How were they able to build up their self-esteem? So I gave you several different scenarios on the heels of what self-esteem really is. Self-esteem cannot be given to you. It can't be just a bunch of words. Self-esteem can't be just a bunch of words. We have to actually do something, put ourselves in action, right? Engage is what we call it. Engaging in life is what I call it when I talk about happiness, right? That is the engagement part. So sometimes when we engage, we get benefits, right? Sometimes we engage and we don't get benefits. What ends up happening then? Or sometimes we engage like Brian did. I think it was Brian who engaged. Maybe it wasn't. I'm not sure. Look back at the readings. Who engaged, but it was Brian, and who wrote the books, who got the PhD, and still didn't end up getting the rewards. So he demonstrated grit, but according to that story, he still didn't get the rewards. What's going on? So we talked about sweating yesterday, right? In that article on optimism, a double-edged sword. I think it was that one. Yeah, it was that article. So we're talking about the subtleties. What subtleties are like the gray areas is what we're talking about. The gray areas, it's not black and white. I get to be persevere and diligent. And here we're calling it grit. It's either you do it this way or not, and that's it. No, all these areas, the subtleties of getting true grit, of being diligent, of persevering, all of those things are meaning the same thing. How do we get those? So we're talking about building up a real idea of how we can be gritty, of how we can be diligent, of how we can be hard workers, have a work ethic, and know it's going to pay off in the end. Know that it will. Why do we have people who are, whatever you call it, Mondays and giving up on their work week and forget about working on Fridays? Why do we have these? And quiet quitting. Why do we have that? Because people are not getting out of their work day or work week or boss or their journey what they expect to get out of it. I am here to talk to you about how to get that out of what you want, right? Out of your journey. How do you get what you need so you don't spiral down, instead you spiral up? How do you get what you need? We're going to be talking about an upward spiral in the spiritual classroom. So pay attention to that. We're talking about spiraling down, right? And we see this. It's based on, no joy, no happiness, focused on those bottom levels, right? Physical health, safety, those things. So spiraling down, right? What are the behaviors that help us inch back up? So that's where we're talking about true grit. Okay. All right. So we saw the true grit scale is on the right there. And on the left there are the practical steps or ingredients. Let's think about those as ingredients to true grit. The scale of measuring whether or not we have true grit. We went over this on Thursday, so look at that. The scale on how to measure true grit is on the right, whether or not you have it, whether or not it's changing, right? You could take that today on Tuesday and take it again in another week or another month. Are you inching up and becoming more gritty? That's what we're calling it. We're calling it gritty, right? So on the left, there are the actual behaviors that we want to increase or invest in. All right, so let me get up my... Oh, there it is. It's right in front of me. So I can see this myself a little bit more close. Okay, so number one is the very first thing that we want to do is help people find their passion. And we started talking about this a little bit. Your passion is, what brings you that eudaimonic happiness. This is exactly what Aristotle is talking about. He's talking about being true to yourself. Being true to yourself is realizing what you are most passionate about. And this is something right inside your soul. You might know it already. You might not know it. I didn't know it for a long time that it was psychology. I knew I was good with people, but I also knew that I wasn't very patient. I never thought I would be a teacher because my level of patience with people was very, very low, right? But I kept with the things that I loved, which was knowing knowledge and science about people, scientific knowledge about people. So that was psychology. So I kept with the things that I loved. So you likely know the things that you love. Now, here's one of the things that is so hard for today, right? I love playing video games. I love being on my phone. I love doing searches on my phone. You're going to have to figure out ways to figure out your passion that's beyond, being on your phone, playing with technology. Because we know the healthiest thing that we can do is build relationships. Now, you're like, well, I'm an introvert. So is my oldest son an introvert. And I have to respect that, being somebody who is so opposite, the most opposite of an introvert, right? The most opposite. And yet I have to be respectful and knowledgeable about his introversion. But I also know this. I also know that extroversion and scales of happiness are almost identical. So that the more extroverted you are, the more happy you are, the happier you are, the more joy you find in life. And that is because we are made to be engaged. All right? So, if you're an extrovert, you're not made to be engaged so readily with people. You're made to be engaged with things. Okay? We need people to be engaged with things as well. But then you have to learn to communicate that. You need to share that information. So, our passion is in everything, and that brings us to point number 2, which is don't worry about balance. What that means is very specifically, since we can't be good at everything, and since we have a passion for some things but not others, we don't have to worry about investing our time in being a jack of all trades and knowing everything. There are plenty of things I'm not good at. And the first one that keeps coming to mind is numbers. I'm not good at numbers. Now, it doesn't mean I was bad at math. I could do basic math for sure. In arithmetic, I learned my multiplication tables in 3rd grade, what every parent should be teaching their child in between 3rd and 4th grade. So the summertime, the time off around between 3rd and 4th grade, you should learn and memorize your multiplication tables all the way through 12, right? We know 1, so 2 through 12 needs to be memorized by kids who are in the third and between the third and fourth grade, right around there, whenever you have a chance between the third and fourth grade. Whenever you want to, if you want to do it in the summertime or while you're studying other things, you need to be learning your multiplication tables. All right, so I learned all that stuff and I did very well when it came to that. But theoretically, math theoretically, like geometry, to me is math, it's theoretical math. How do you figure out the space in a triangle? I have no idea. Well, I do. I actually do. You multiply, I think. Or you add the distance. See, I don't know. I'm not sure. It's something about the length of the size, and I think it's A plus B plus C equals the area of a triangle, I think. I'm not sure. Somebody else knows. See, I should know that, but I don't. But I'm really good at knowing the stuff I'm teaching you. I'm really good at knowing that because I spent almost all my time knowing that. And if I wasn't knowing this, I was knowing something about theology, right? So theology is the study of God. So I was always studying one way or another about God and the Bible and religion and learning all kinds of things. Why? Because that was where my passion was. So know what you're passionate about and don't worry about those other things that you're not passionate about. All right? Let's move on. Provide criticism lessons. Oh, I already talked about these things, didn't I? I did. I talked about them. So, but I don't know how, I felt like I talked about them in very, very briefly. I mentioned them and I didn't go into detail. And that's what I think that I did. So, although I went into more detail with some than others. So sorry if it feels like a repeat. So provide criticism lessons. So criticism lessons really are, when I go and I put your and I think I probably said this, when I put up your Lego projects and what can I do? I don't tell you that it's better than your brother's or as good as your brother who is 4 years older when it's not. So that's an opportunity for that child to learn how to take criticism from what? From a nurturing and loving caregiver, mom, dad, aunt, uncle, grandma, right? Don't, if the cousins are the same age, they probably won't be as nurturing. They have to learn in their comments. They'll be like, that stinks. Look at that, right? That's why you have to provide criticism lessons for your child. Why? Because somebody's going to go, that stinks. There's probably going to be another child who's going to be a peer. Look at that. Oh my gosh, they've never seen anything look so stupid. You're not going to get kids to stop that message until they're a little bit older and they see a good example of that message. They need to see a good example of how you deal with somebody who might have hurt feelings if you tell them that sucks, that looks stupid, I've never seen anything, why would you put a tree there? And maybe you had an imagination and another person didn't, right? So you follow your passions, you figure out how to get internal rewards to feel good about yourself in your Lego project, even when somebody is going to criticize it, because somebody will always criticize it. And what can we do? Well, we can punch that person in the face, right? And get them to stop criticizing you every time they're around you. But that's only going to stop that behavior for a short period of time. It's not going to stop their behavior any other time, right? And eventually, when that person learns to fight back, it's not going to stop their criticism of you. So what can you do? This is about the control thing. What can you do? What do you have control over? Well, we know we desperately need control, but we don't have control over somebody else criticizing you. So we can change our words all we want in society and say, that's a bad word. Don't call somebody that word. And somebody's still going to call that person that word. Somebody eventually will use that word and call that person that word that you said they're not supposed to use. Now, what are you going to do? Are you going to outlaw that word? You're going to put that person in jail? You're going to slap a note on this person right across their mouth that says this person speaks nasty words? No, we're not even going in that direction, right? So what do we have to do? We have to learn how to take it. We have to learn how to have our self-esteem built on something else. All right. We'll get to the rest of them then tomorrow, and we just started talking about learned helplessness, so we'll get to that in detail, and wait till you see the study. You are going to love that study. You're going to love it. Okay, this is Dr. Annette Feravich with this is the Critical Thinking Classroom, and I am the teacher. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you back here tomorrow when we talk about learned helplessness. Thanks.